Exploring Stories. SCP-055 Unknown. In my prior videos, I mainly focused on SCPs that were horror-based. In this SCP, I'm going to touch on one of the more interesting SCPs that doesn't touch at all on horror, but rather memetics. A lot of you may be new to the SCP world and may not know what a memetic is, what an info hazard is, what a cognito hazard is. The two I just mentioned, info hazard and cognito hazard, we're not going to go over this video, but just so you know, it does exist in the SCP world. A memetic hazard can include elements of the human senses. So what that means is I can see, feel, touch, anything that involves the human senses. If you can use that to perceive an item, it can influence your psyche. So for example, right in front of me, I'm looking at a cup of coffee. If this cup of coffee was an SCP that may have a memetic hazard on it, every time I look at it, it could make me crave caffeine to the point where I'm drinking excessive amounts of caffeine through this cup all the time because it's a memetic hazard. That being said, I digress to the SCP of today, 055. Description: SCP-055 is a self-keeping secret, also known as an anti-meme or an anti-memetic. Information about SCP-055 physical appearance, as well as its nature, behavior, and origins, is self-classifying. Here's an explanation. What self-classifying means is SCP-055 is currently contained at Site 19. However, nobody knows how it got there, when it was acquired, by whom, and around what date it was gotten. Furthermore, its physical appearance is unknown. It's not indescribable or invisible per se. It's that individuals are incapable of remembering what they saw. You can go into its container and take mental or written notes, make sketches, photographs, even take audio recordings, and it even shows an extensive log of such observations on the profile. However, it leaks out of the human mind the moment that it's observed and you've finished with your interaction. Individuals tasked with describing SCP-055 afterwards find their minds wandering and lost in the task. Individuals tasked with sketching a copy of the photograph of SCP-055 are unable to remember what the photograph looks like, as well as the researchers overseeing the test. Security personnel who have observed SCP-055 via closed-circuit television cameras emerge after a full shift exhausted and effectively amnesticized about the previous events or the previous hour. And a quick reminder, amnestics are what's used to make people forget certain series of events, kind of like Men in Black when they have that little flasher that makes you forget a certain amount of time. Exact same thing here. No one knows who authorized the construction of this SCP's containment room, why it was constructed in this way, or what the purpose of the described containment procedures may be. Everything is unknown. Despite its container being easily accessible, all personnel at the site claim that they have no knowledge of its existence when they're challenged or interrogated about SCP-055. All of these facts are periodically rediscovered, usually by chance readers of this file, you and me right now, causing a great deal of alarm for the SCP Foundation. This state of concern lasts about a minute at most before the matter is simply forgotten about. Reviewing the file, it also shows a great deal of scientific data which has been recorded on SCP-055, but none of this can be studied. It seems as though at least one attempt has been made to destroy SCP-055 or even move it from its containment cell at Site 19 to any other site. However, for unknown reasons, this task always ends in failure. It may pose a physical and grave threat, and it may have indeed already killed hundreds of personnel, and we would not have known it. Certainly it does present a gigantic memetic and mental threat, hence this is why we're going to get into the object classification, Keter. So, to summarize the information I've given you so far, SCP-055 is unknown to the Foundation even though there's a ton of data on it. Not because people aren't doing their job, but because it's a memetic hazard. What that means is if you can perceive it via one of the human senses, touch, sight, smell, hearing, it can affect your brain and cause your psyche to forget about it. So it wipes individuals' brains the moment you finish your interaction with this object. Okay, let's get into the special containment procedures. The object is to be kept within a 5 by 5 by 2.5 meter square room constructed of cement. This cement is to be 50 centimeters thick, with a Faraday cage surrounding the cement walls. I'm going to pop up a picture on screen of what a Faraday cage is, but it's basically an enclosure used to block electromagnetic fields. It looks like a little cage, kind of that you would put birds in. Access to SCP-055 is via a heavy containment door, measuring 2 by 2.5 meters, constructed on bearings to ensure the door closes and locks automatically, unless held open deliberately. Security guards are not to be posted outside its room. It's further advised that all personnel maintaining or studying other SCP objects in the vicinity try to maintain a distance of at least 50 meters from the geometric center of the room, as long as it's reasonably practical. For example, cleaning the room, that's not reasonably practical to stay away from it. So its containment cell is pretty much a kick-ass big square of cement with a Faraday cage around it, and it's locked away in an area of the Foundation in which people rarely stumble upon it. Let's move forward to the documentation on file. The first one we have is document 055 number 1, titled An Analysis of SCP-055. The author of the document 055 puts forward the hypothesis that SCP-055 was never formally acquired by the Foundation, and it's in fact an autonomous or remotely controlled agent inserted at the site by an unidentified third party for one of the following or all of these purposes: to silently observe or interfere with activities at Site-19, activities at other SCP locations, activities of humanity worldwide, interfering with other SCP objects, or interfering with blank. No action to counter any of these potential threats is suggested or indeed theoretically possible. Okay, next is document number 055, number 2. Report of Dr. John Marichek. Survey team number 19-055-127-BXC was successfully able to enter SCP-055's container and ascertain the appearance, as well to some degree the nature of the object. Notes were then taken according to the project's methodology after blank, in which the container was then sealed again. Here is an excerpt of the transcript of the individuals within his cell. It's Dr. Hughes and personnel blank. Dr. Hughes, okay, I'm going to need to ask you some questions now about SCP number 55. Blank responds, number what? SCP Object 55, the object you just examined. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think we have a 55. Okay then. I'd like to tell you to tell me what you've been doing for the last 2 hours. What? I don't know. Okay then. Do you remember that we all agreed that it wasn't spherical? What? Right, yes, it isn't round at all. Object 55 isn't round. So you remember now? Well, no, I mean, I don't know what it is, but I know there is one. It's something you can't remember, but it's not a sphere. Oh, wait a minute. Not a sphere. Object 55. Object what? Doc, do you remember agreeing that something wasn't shaped like a sphere? Oh, right. End of transcript. Based off the personnel's log, it appears to be possible to remember what this SCP is not, which is negations of facts, and to repeatedly deduce its existence from memories. Personnel involved in survey number 19055-127-BXC reported moderate levels of disorientation and psychological trauma associated with cycles of repeated memory and forgetfulness of this SCP. And we're at the last part of this article, the recommendations. It may be worthwhile to post at least one staff member capable of remembering the existence of SCP-055 to each critical site. That being said, I know we just went through an entire article where nobody's able to remember this SCP. However, later on in our videos as we move forward, there are some people in the Foundation that are special and receive a special type of training that helps them with cognitohazards as well as memetic hazards. So basically, it's somebody who's developed an immunity to these types of negative effects on the human psyche, but like I said, we'll talk about it more in the future. That being said, the summary of SCP-055 is that it's unknown. We just know that it's at Site 19 and that it's not a sphere. Individuals who attempt to remember SCP-055 after its interactions continuously end up developing some form of psychological trauma or negative psychic effect like migraines or anxiety. I feel like this is a great SCP to give an introduction to what memetics, cognitohazards, and infohazards are, which we haven't talked on the latter of the two I just mentioned. But if you're still listening, thank you so much for your time tonight. Please consider subscribing, leaving a like or comment. Thank you, and have a great rest of your night.